and the shamans. But something we have to keep in mind is that when Blizzard announced this format structure, the wild and standard format structure, we will be experiencing that with another expansion. So, when this format actually hits on ladder, it's going to be a totally different game. And the classes that you see dominate this tournament are probably exactly the ones that are going to have some of their base and classic cards nerfed. So, it's
Shaman?
yeah,
Really? Shaman
possibly.
nerfed?
It's kind of interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic, but it's very cool nonetheless to see how it plays out in these preliminary stages. Today, on day 2, we have the second round of players. The way that the tournament is structured is that, we have 16 invited players. 8 play in Group A, which was yesterday, and the remaining half play today. This is Group B. And the 4 top players, 4 players who are either 2-0 or 2-1 from each group move on to the final day and play for $30,000. So we're getting into it already.
That's right, guys. No more waiting. We're just going to go straight into the games. It's going to be a long day, guys. 8 matches. We're going to be cutting off the first round of the losers bracket in the interest of time. And we're going to start things off very quick. Over here we have Firebat on the Warrior and RDU on the Aggro Paladin. Oh, sorry, I mixed that up. Firebat on the Aggro Paladin, or what looks to be an Aggro Paladin. This is kind of weird. I was expecting, some, abusive sergeants, leper gnomes, not Jeweled Scarab if it's going to be an aggressive form of Paladin.
Well, unlike the actual standard format, this mock standard format that we're trying to incorporate in the tournament here does allow you to get banned cards from discover effects, from random effects, and Jeweled Scarab is actually a very good Paladin card because it pulls so many strong cards. Aldor Peacekeeper, Seal of Champions, both those cards are like on the insane level, and you can get cards like Muster for Battle, and there's quite a few others that are pretty hefty for their mana cost.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see the power of that in Arena, for example, where Paladin also is a top tier class, if not the top tier class. And so it's just interesting to see that included as, I guess you could say, reach. And not to mention that there's also 3 mana cards that ultimately hit face and be really aggressive too. There might be the Wolf Rider, there might be the Arcane Golem, even the Argent Wolf Rider.
We see him. It's going Smork. All right. Now it's interesting to note. We talked about a little bit class distribution. Almost every single player is bringing Druid. Kibler was the only player to not bring Druid on day 1 in Group A. He didn't make it, and Firebat is the only player in day 2 Group B to not bring Druid. But not only that, he is also the only player to bring Paladin, which is the deck that we're witnessing play here.
Yeah, and this was something that I wasn't sure how much we'd see, but I was thinking that if you just play with the fact and the knowledge that you don't have Healbot, you don't have Sludge Belcher, aggro decks can get very, very strong early on because you don't have as many control tools. Even cards like Zombie Chow were so good at fighting off the early game aggression. Haunted Creeper is another card that comes to mind. So without those tools, how well equipped are you to drag things out? It's interesting. Now, another interesting dynamic is that Firebat does have some secrets into his deck. Noble Sacrifice, I mean, he probably has Avenge, and maybe a couple of others as well.
It's possible, but not Avenge. I believe Avenge is a next Rammus card that is not allowed in this format.
Did you get Crypt to start things off? I'm just checking to see how awake you are, man. You're looking a little groggy, but you're definitely more on point than I am at the moment.
Well, the interesting thing about some of these secrets is that in the very classical sense of Paladin, there were still cards that were played. So, in the very early stages of Hearthstone, one of my best decks was the aggro Paladin, and you would play cards like Noble Sacrifice along with lots of 1-drops and 2-drops, which is kind of what it seems like Firebat has, and you would do that not because their effects are particularly good, but because these are cards you can just spam. So, the secret kind of ties into this type of deck because it's a 1-mana card. It works very well with Divine Favor, which is really what you're trying to do. But also, it helps you in a lot of the situations where you just have too many minions.
Yeah, definitely interesting to see more of that deck being being built. Meanwhile, on RDU side, we've seen the deck, at least a lot of the core ideas, several times by now. One of them, it was his teammate playing it, Tice, who did end up advancing to day number 3, playing the Dragon Warrior. I wonder if he chose the same tech as his teammate as well, with like Farseers, for example, as a way to stabilize the board. And when you play these kinds of decks, it's because you're anticipating that your opponent will be playing very aggressive decks as well. So this could be one of those situations where Firebat just happens to run into a lineup that's very good against his if RDU's planning an anti-aggro setup.
Oh man, look at this combo. 4 mana, 5/1 charge, Divine Shield. Sign me up.
You can't escape it, man. No matter where you go, you see the Argent Horse Rider, Divine Shield, and Charge. It's just so problematic for Warrior. You don't have efficient ways to remove this at all.
Well, I do want to mention that this Paladin deck, unlike a lot of the other aggressive decks, unlike a lot of the other aggro decks, it doesn't really have any way to deal much damage after he's lost the board. So that's kind of a big deal when you're playing against the Taunt Warrior, basically. I feel like, even though it seems like Firebat's getting a lot of damage in right now, I think he's going to be short in the end. I think he's going to have to start trading here this turn or the next, and things are going to start going pretty badly after that.
Yeah, also the Cold Light Oracle gives more options for Warrior to have relevant taunts like the Twilight Guardian. So that's only going to increase the chances of RDU drawing to that dragon, I think. I mean, he's getting really deep into his deck, and he still has yet to hit another dragon for Twilight Guard to activate. But if it does, I mean, that's gaining 10 extra health alone.
Yeah.
Not to mention Alex Dawes' Charge. Pretty effective removal for the 5/2 as well. And then now that you get the tank up, it could be lights out like you were mentioning. And you said that Firebat might get close. Is he going to even get close? Tank up is one of those hero powers that can just rebound you back up to full health, and nothing ever happened.
Well, right now he's actually threatening lethal. So Firebat has to start trading to stay alive right now.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and he needs to juggle to land correctly. Nope. Face.
He doesn't need it to land correctly, but he would certainly like it if it did. 2 face juggles is very poor. Oh, make it 3.
3 face juggles. It's an aggressive paladin list, right? Just want to hit face. You said you didn't have too many ways to do direct damage from the hand.
All right, now I believe what Firebat needs is a Bloodlust and an Earthshock.
Well, he could. I mean, in a serious tone, he can get Divine Favor, which might have some trump card. You know, sometimes these super aggressive lists have silences, like an owl, or I mean, in this case, a keeper.
Oh, whoa! Playing the Emperor. Wow, choosing not to armor up.
He's bold. He's really believing in that he can just close out the game here. Leper Gnome off the top.
I really think that the Twilight Guardian was much more effective of a card there. On one hand, because you get to armor up, which is 4 health, but also like a 5/5 Emperor is actually weaker than a 2/6 when your opponent has 2 HP.
Oh man, is that enough to clear? I don't think so. So that's gonna wrap it up. So you know, RDU took definitely more aggressive stance, but I feel like he could have actually still done nothing and still been okay. Like so it was ultimately okay in the long run if he just played a single minion. But I get what you're saying, because like it has more HP on the Twilight Guardian, so you know, and you get tank up, so you get the damage in guaranteed. And it's not like that deck runs life gain. In fact, a lot of life game options are taken out of the sets, so. It's an interesting call. I'm not sure
well,
why.
The repercussions here are pretty big. I mean, Warrior got a win. Warrior only won 2 games yesterday out of 15?
Like a dozen.
Yeah, around there. So, you know, starting the day with a Warrior win might mean that this Paladin deck will struggle to pull ahead.
Well, okay, to be fair, not the Paladin, the Warrior was also played off stream a little bit. Like Brian Kibler, for example, won his series off stream. and then he had to play again. So I think he beat Orange with that lineup, meaning that he definitely won with his Dragon Warrior. So there's more to it than what we see. But another deck under question is, will Firebat's aggro strategy pay off? I mean, he's a player that when he was first making splashes into the scene at BlizzCon, he kept saying like he really enjoys playing aggro decks. He thinks it's underappreciated. And at heart, even though he plays a lot of control decks, he really loves hitting base a lot.
The attack here against the Divine Shield actually has a very large effect. I think RDU saw that he will not be able to ping off the Divine Shield at any other turn before the Paladin hits 4 mana. And if you kings a Divine Shield minion, regardless of how big it is, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's one of those things, too, where this is the power of Darnassus Aspirant. A lot of people are giving Darnassus Aspirant, like, the cold shoulder these days because they feel that the Living Roots is much more effective early game, and if Darnassus Aspirant's drawn any time after, like, turns 1 to 3 or 4 even, it just becomes River Crocodile status. When that's not really the case sometimes. It just, you might even just want the body and the threat of ramping up into stuff. It forces Firebat into trading with things like Wolf Rider. That's how much of a threat it can be. And so ultimately, like, you have to evaluate that. I think one of the really big MVPs for Druid being able to survive this much health early game has been the 2 Aspirants.
Double Divine Favor is probably the worst thing you can hope for. That's why he's using one here, rather than trying to conquer the board as fast as possible.
Well, you have 6 mana, so you have a huge opportunity to grab big tempo, especially a Keeper of the Grove has been used. So Blessing of Kings with that Divine Shield. Boom. And now, this is kind of a scenario that you often see in Arena. It's like, well, I'm gonna use this Blessing of Kings and Argent Protector, both very common cards that you can pick up and destroy a value minion. And now it's like, well, what do I use? I don't have access to a silence. I
think what he can consider is Wild Growth and the Farseer. It'll put him on Ragnaros next turn, and it'll put him on combo the turn after that. And I don't think the Paladin will give up 6 damage to kill the Farseer, so I think you're in the clear.
I mean, I also like it because of the unknown information to RDU that there's a second Divine Favor. So the longer you hold on to things like the Wild Growth, right, then they just become another card for your opponent. I don't know if that's the direct intention of RDU, but it's probably something that he might even think down the line if he had more time to evaluate his play.
Reporting for duty.
Alright, let's see what he's going to do. He's going to trade with a Divine Shield. Go face. Now Ragnaros is pretty horrible.
Yeah. He's well aware. I mean, if he... There's one thing that
1 out of 6
does really well.
Almost.
Yes,
Almost.
just a little bit off.
Man, imagine you're that flame juggler. You see your friend get pummeled down for 8 damage. It could have been me.
This is brutal. Divine Favor. I mean, 4 is... Sometimes you're just happy that it's not like 6+, but still 4 to refill the hand can be pretty brutal when you have so much mana remaining to use a few more of those cards.
Now, the Noble Sacrifice will not trigger with 7 minions, so that's something to keep in mind. It is pretty useless here.
Well, I mean, is there any bluff value?
Sure, there's always bluff value.
Like, what if it's Competitive Spirit, right? Is that a valuable card for the this deck? I'm not sure.
The biggest thing would be Redemption, right? If it was Redemption, you'd have to swipe the 2/3 minion because you wouldn't want to redeem the 2/1, which was played third. But
the Argent Horse Rider would be the first to come back if you swiped.
If you swiped like the 6/7 with like a Wrath play, yeah.
Right.
So
pretty interesting sequencing events. No
unlikely.
Swipe.
Nope. I mean, even if he got a swipe, it was not really a game he'd win. I mean, he'd take 12 next turn.
He did beginning of the turn, basically.
Yeah.
Beginning of the turn plus something else. I don't even know. Sun Fury Protector, maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, okay, that wasn't too bad. That's the first Paladin victory of the tournament.
Yeah.
claimed by Firebat here. That was actually pretty dominant. I mean, maybe, yeah, it seems like it does struggle against Warrior, especially with that Fiery War Axe counter in the early game. Not much of a surprise, but on the other hand, I am pretty surprised that it was so dominant against the Druid. I mean, if the Druid had like 30 more HP, I think the Druid would have still lost that game.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you look at Druid and how it fares against aggro, because of Swipe, a lot of aggro decks are very afraid and they struggle against it, but without it, Druid is just like everything else where it just couldn't stabilize enough, and then they had to choose between the situation where, like, do I go aggressive and try to win the game with the Force of Nature Savage Roar, or you try to get lucky a little bit. So RDU was just in an awkward spot, and that Ragnaros did pretty much nothing. It just it was just worse than a lot of other 8 drops. You know, heck, it would have been better if he had like Ironbark Protector, right?
It went a lot better.
Yeah. So taking a look at the decks here, Firebat has Tempo Mage, and it is a Tempo Mage that draws nothing. In fact, the way it's set up makes it look like a Control Mage of some sort. RDU is also given plenty of time. He didn't exactly have the best curve in the world, but now he's given a few turns to really set up here.
Yeah, this. I mean, I think it is a Tempo Mage as well, but it looks like a really dead draw here. It could not be. It could be like a freeze, maybe, right? It's possible.
No. Now with the water elemental, I'm like, I mean, I was giving some credence to possibly, but like the old school list of Freeze Mage had stuff like Azure Drake, but it's still a stretch. Now Firebat has to really evaluate what he wants to do. I mean,
water elemental, easy. Water elemental.
In terms of the gameplay, how things go forward, it still looks like Freeze Mage, right?
Okay.
I'm not sure how valuable looking like Freeze Mage versus actually being Freeze Mage is. Works out in Firebat's favor here. Okay.
Yep. There's a Mana Worm, more of a standard card.
I wonder if Firebat's just gonna retool his game plan here. His hand had a lot of burn, but now he's. I think maybe he's just gonna try to come back onto the board with like a big Flamewaker turn if he can.
Yeah, Flamewaker's still legal. If you think of broken cards, you're only thinking of GVG, but Flamewaker did make the pass in Blackrock Mountain.
Put this apple on your
Yeah, that's right. And it was one of the cards that gave life to Tempo Mage, at least the common versions we see today. Tempo Mage did exist to a certain extent in different forms throughout Hearthstone's history, but I think the strongest iteration...
Look at that.
Probably now.
3 damage Holy Smite and Black and Corrupt are off the top. Kills the Water Elemental cleanly.
Yeah, Water Elemental not really having impact at all. I mean, it's one of those things where you're probably looking for Flame Strike at this stage, which is not really a common card. That was a 3-mana card I saw, so was that the Flamewaker?
Oh. That'd be amazing if it was for Firebat.
Yeah, he has the Frost. Oh, that was a Sorcerer Apprentice. I apologize. It was a 3-attack creature. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really see Firebat doing anything here. I think he's gonna catch up on the board roughly around turn 9, and then Ysera is just gonna make that all meaningless.
It depends. You know, Ethereal Conjurer has the opportunity to pick up some removal for that. It can pick up not only Polymorph, but Polymorph 4. Looking for that. Ooh. Close moment there, as you could have seen some disaster happen if it wasn't able to kill off that Azure Drake.
Yeah. Alright, well, he's still holding... He can actually Bran and play the Twilight Guardian. Make it a 4/6 double taunt.
Taunt. I like the Holy Smite just because the Tempo Mage, it benefits so much off the Sorcerer's Apprentice, one of the unsung heroes of the deck. The deck becomes much more explosive when you can, decrease the cost of a lot of things. You can consider it along the same lines of like a miniature Emperor Thaurissan, right? It just gives you so many ways to squeeze in plays that you normally don't see. Firebat has Effigy, Arcane Blast, and Ice Lance. Ice Lance not really applicable here. He lost his Water Elemental, so chooses Arcane Blast for more board presence.
I think Effigy may have worked out fine, but Arcane Blast is going to work out a little bit better if he gets Flame Waker.
It's probably because he's just all in on this Mana Worm. He's anticipating this Mana Worm being...
Oh! No spell damage, though.
Yeah, if that was a 3 damage Holy Nova, game's over.
There is no Velen's Chosen in this format. That is a GVG card, so it is a little bit difficult to get a spell damage board clear now for Priest, which is why we've seen some of the Priest players run Wild Pyromancer, getting that like mock spell damage and combo potential with healing.
Yeah, it's a good point. In fact, board clear is just weaker in general for Priest. No Light Bomb, and these Dragon Priests don't really run Alkanai Soul Priest with the Circle of Healing.
I wonder.
Yeah, this is a interesting spot. If you use the Holy Nova, you're almost certainly giving up your Twilight Drake, and you only can play Bram Bronzebeard, which isn't exactly the strongest on board.
Quickly.
Alright, well, he is going with the Bran.
Oh man,
Put
I'm really
weapon
scared
in the
about,
museum
like,
twice.
I'm scared. 2 trips to the museum now. That's value.
That actually would have worked in the recent Tavern Brawl, where if you lost a weapon, you got a new one automatically.
Yeah, you're right. That's pretty funny. Oh my god, Flame Waker. So now Arcane Blast does 4 damage, or 6 damage, effectively, because of the 2 extra missiles that come out of our Flame Waker here. And plus the Mana Worm gets the buff. I think maybe Firebat also evaluates if he wants to draw a card maybe for the
I think you have to kill the 3/6 first, though. I think the 6/3 has to trade, and then you play this Flame Waker with the Arcane Blast on the 5/4, and you hope that you get 2 missiles into Bran. That'd be nice. Actually, no, you could just kill Bran with a Mana Worm.
And then, yeah, overkill it, then just get the guaranteed 2 shots to the face. And then you have dominant board position.
Yeah, looks good.
It does make the Mana Worm more susceptible to Holy Nova, but then Holy Nova takes up a considerable amount of their mana that turn.
Well, Holy Nova clears everything but the Azure Drake. I would consider that... Oh, I guess not. You probably won't play the Twilight Guardian. I think I'd still go for that. I think I'd still go for Twilight Guardian Holy Nova play. Oh, Ysera's trouble. Look how much damage is on the board.
Yeah, 14 damage with a lot of scaling possibility. You just have to draw 1 spell and everything gets +2 spell damage. Or +3 spell damage, excuse me.
And it's not only that, it's... You know you're getting Laughing Sisters 100% of the time here. Play Ysera.
Yeah, I guess so.
I must consider.
Laughing Sisters is like... It's such a plague, you know? It's not bad in some scenarios, but most of the time it's just kind of useless, like a weaker Yeti or some sort. And plus, it's the activator for the Twilight Guardian too. If you play it, the only way you can get it back is if you draw an Emerald Drake.
That's right.
I wouldn't hate the Shadow Word Pain either, because the possibilities of what Flame Waker can do, but your opponent also has used a lot of spells. 2 Fireballs, Frostbolt, Arcane Missiles, Arcane Intellect, even the Ethereal Conjurer, so it's hard for it to come back. But you look at that Arcane Blast off the top, that Twilight Guardian would have gotten punished pretty badly.
That's true, actually. Alright, well, if you draw something you can play with a Drake here, it's great. It's a Nefarian.
Interesting.
I think I'd go for the Nefarian play. Because it's such a threatening card. With 2 random spells, you could very easily just kill your opponent. I mean, they're mage spells after all.
Oh,
well, that is better than any mage spell.
Yeah, that's a full board clear, and assuming the priest doesn't take enormous damage here, that could just steal up the game. I don't think this kind of mage deck is running any heavy end game that we were expecting, but maybe he is. And even if he does, it has to be a debate whether or not he wants to keep this Arcane Blast for things like an Antonius. It could be indicative of it.
And looks like he's going for it. He wants to close out this game as fast as possible. I think this is absolutely the correct play. Oh, Flame Waker agrees.
I mean, it's one of those things. If you use the Ysera Awakens, are you going to put yourself within a potential like Ethereal Conjurer Fireball play? You've seen
Yep.
2 Fireballs, so
Yeah,
you're
you've seen
safe
two
against that.
fireballs. You wouldn't actually win the game with that. You potentially could lose the game to a Conjure Pyroblast, but I think you race him faster than that, don't you?
You see,
Or-
there's 9 on the board.
Yeah. Yeah, you race
Yeah.
faster than that.
There's no like ability. Maybe Arcane Intellect into something. Arcane Intellect into Frostbolt, Arcane Missiles, Forgotten Torch. Not the right side of it. It needs to be the second iteration, the Roaring Torch. Firebat once again getting a little bit short, but man, that was really close. And without that Ysera Awakens, that game would have been over, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was a 1 out of 5 to lose. So, well, fortunately for RDU, he did nail that Ysera card. And Firebat's gonna have to struggle to get a few wins here. He still has the Mage, which I think is pretty decent against the Druid, and then the Shaman. The Shaman has been a very inconsistent class, but it's still a pretty good one. I think the win rate is still probably like in the mid 50s or the 60s in the tournament, but I think Druid is the class to beat. However, it seems like Firebat bringing all these aggressive decks is punishing exactly Druid.
Yeah, maybe that's his target, right? In Conquest, there's a train of thought that if you can put your opponent very likely to play this type of deck, you can try to kill that deck with all 3 of your decks because they can't win a game. So perhaps he's doing that, but Temple Mage has lost a considerable amount of its punch against Druid. The Mirror Entity is really problematic. Usually you have only Darnassus Aspirant. I guess Farseer is not too bad against it. And then you lose your Flame Cannons, which are like super good against a lot of what Druid has.
Ramp into nothing.
All spells.
This is a pretty good hand from the Mage, though. Looks like it's going to get punished. I think we're going to see... Well, I mean, he might coin a Spellslinger, but that might also get punished.
Yeah, Spellslinger is more resilient, especially when you're putting Wild Growth. You know that your Sorcerer's Apprentice can just get dunked.
Bear Trap.
Bear Trap?
Yep.
Wow. And Mage will probably be using its hero, using like its minions and hero powers to be very aggressive. So like the Bear Trap will be pretty important to stop some of that damage.
I like Violet Teacher Innervate Bear Trap, actually.
Pay attention, class.
Innervate Bear Trap. That's so funny.
I am ready to...
What a combination of cards that you don't really expect here. Oh, and did Firebat get that Flame Lance from it?
Right, but that's not really going to be usable anytime soon. Actually, might
attacking face.
he might
It's
need
like
to
the one-
use
I think he's worried about Snake Trap.
That is not a good case.
No, Bear Trap is probably the worst option given his attack pattern. He's gonna have to instead go for this.
He's got a Frostbolt and Arcane Blast and Mirror Image to stay in it. God. It's a disaster. It's a total disaster.
Do you want a Savage Roar here? I don't know. It actually clears the board that way.
Yeah, it clears the board, but you're gonna lose most of your own board. I don't think that's worth it. I think.
But you go into Ancient of Lore the next turn, so that might be
Savage
okay.
Roar Wild Growth. The main thing I don't like with Savage Roar is you have to sacrifice your 3/3 taunt to kill the 3/4 if you want to clear. So maybe there's a compromise play here that doesn't involve losing that. Maybe you Savage Roar and just leave the 3/4 up. Use your hero power to kill the 3/2 and just go face for 5.
It could be because the 3/4 is not any more threatening because it doesn't have any effect outside of its battle cry, right? So that could be something. The Ancient of Lore, though, is such a big deal because Druid was running low on cards, and you can definitely outcard the Druid if you pick a Flame Waker with some big value stuff. Flame Lance is also not too bad to answer.
Yeah, it is, though, because, like, Flame Lance, he's using his whole turn to kill a 5/5, but the druid being 3 mana ahead is making all the difference here.
I got it.
Discover a spell. See what he has. Duplicates. Vaporize. Vaporize not really good on the board of tokens. And then what was the last one? Was that Arcane Explosion?
Yeah, Arcane Explosion may have been a card to pick there, but I just feel like the mana advantage means that the mage is going to lose tempo. And if the mage loses tempo, the druid's probably eventually going to win this game. The main way that this game is won is when the druid just never has a moment to catch up. But he's commanding the lead right now. And that Arcane Explosion, that would have worked pretty well.
Yeah. It definitely would have if he picked up like Flame Waker as well. Flame Waker or Arcane Explosion and then Frost Bolts, but doesn't have it just yet. Loot Hoarder, see if you can dig a little bit deeper. RDU is looking for Savage Roar number 2.
That's pretty good
Wrath.
too.
He's gonna Silence to deny the card draw. That might be pretty awesome here, considering Firebat's hand.
I must safeguard the land.
I just think you can go for so much face damage.
Oh, he wants
I think-
Savage Roar. Oh,
Yeah, but I think I would have liked the swipe face there.
he still can crit.
No,
Gotta dream big, but no need to rush.
I guess he's given respect for like a barrage of spells from a Flame Waker.
Plus, I don't know how much you are keeping in mind of stuff like Ethereal Conjurer's spells, but it's one of those things where if you're so far ahead, you have to really think how you can lose.
Okay,
Druid of the Claw
that's it.
is
100%.
That's enough.
Oh, that's way enough. He
Yep.
has 10 damage in hand, so that's 3 over lethal.
So RDU wraps up the series. The Druid once again being an imposing force. Gotta have to wonder like what happened with some of those games where Firebat drew super awkwardly, and the aggro decks aren't the ones drawing awkwardly usually, right?
Yeah, it's usually the control decks that struggle to find the answers for the aggro decks, but in this matchup it was quite the opposite. But of course, guys, these players are never out. These are just the preliminary games. To advance to the second day, you have to have a 2-win score. But half the players advancing with 2-win scores do have a loss. So even though Firebat lost his opening game, if he wins his next one, we'll see more of him in the decider match later in the day, and he could perhaps still advance through to tomorrow.
Yep, that's right, guys. So we have another great match coming up for you. It's Savitz from Team Liquid versus Cloud9's Kalento, a battle of, honestly, 2 of the bigger names in the Europe region. Really cool to see them face off, which is coming up in a few minutes. Before we do that, we also want to thank the people that really help us put this on. So a big shout out to Geek Fuel, the Curse Network, and Hearthstone. Hearthstone has this Innkeeper thing where it's a tool made for the folks by the folks at Hearthstone that let you sync your card collection and share it with other people. In addition to spot what cards you're missing when building decks. So just check that out while we take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have our second match of the day. Stay tuned.